Welcome to Out of Home Insider. Today's guest is Greg Glenday. Greg is the CEO of Lightbox, formerly AdSpace, a programmatic network that focuses on in-market consumers at the point of purchase or close to it in more than 300 premier shopping destinations all across the country. They don't just put screens up where people are, though. Lightbox dominates the space with over 94% of all the in-mall inventory and uniquely uses video to engage buyers with brands. Their team is comprised of the best and brightest from out of home, business, and technology. And today we'll spend time with the man responsible for their march to victory. Greg, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That's a great intro. You actually just passed our sales training final exam. So that was pretty good. We could have you selling stuff.
It's always a tryout, right? We're always trying out for something.
Yeah,
Greg,
great. Thanks for having me.
Right, like most people, and this is where we like to start each episode, is no one really has a linear path to out of home. And yours certainly wasn't that. You weren't born and raised as a billboard guy, but tell us about where you came from and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's fine. I spent almost 20 years in radio, music, entertainment. I was at what's now iHeartMedia. Originally, we were called Clear Channel Entertainment, and that's where I started in the mid-'90s. We had a sister company, Clear Channel Outdoor, that's still Clear Channel Outdoor. And funny enough, now I'm in the same building. I'm on the third floor, they're on the second floor. But, so I worked with those guys, kind of arm's distance. We would do some big pitches together. And I remember being really jealous of their business. And, I thought our side was fun. The grass is always greener. We had musicians and, we were bringing Rihanna to meetings and things like that. And there's all these kind of interesting things on the radio side. But the stuff we were selling to advertisers was fleeting, right? It's the commercials, they air and then they're gone. And I remember the first year I went to Cannes and everybody's looking at these beautiful billboards that Clear Channel has, and they're winning awards for the art and the creative that's up there. And it was so tangible that I always thought about that. And I think, everybody in radio is jealous of the visual mediums, right? And TV and outdoor. So that was always in the back of my head. I went into an ad network called Undertone, deep end of the pool, digital cross screen, like real, digital data stuff. That company was acquired, and I kind of went halfway back to music, and I went to a company called Shazam that was the music identification app, and ran the global business there. And that was a blast, but also, again, nothing tangible. We had this very complicated product and advertisers trying to understand it and how the data worked. And Shazam went through probably the longest acquisition in history. It took us a year to finally close and be acquired by Apple. I'm 25 years as an advertising guy. Apple kind of made their reputation on no advertising, no data, consumer privacy. So when that transaction happened, I had a long time to kind of, walk on the beach and think about what I was going to do next. And I literally, the day after I made a list of what was important to me, somebody called and said, hey, there's a company, it's called AdSpace. It's fundamentally sound. They've got a great network. But I think they just have maybe some things that need to be adjusted on the marketing side and perhaps the team building and that kind of thing, the stuff that I really enjoy. And I started meeting the board. I started meeting the senior executives, and I fell in love with the company. I looked under the hood. I got to really see everything. And I said, wow, if we tweak a few things, I think this is fundamentally an awesome company with, famous last words, an easy path to growth. I probably said, as long as there's not a global pandemic, we should grow for the next 4 years. So that was right around now. So around June of 2018, I started. It was called AdSpace, Mall Networks at the time. And, we had, the network was awesome. 5,000 screens, big, beautiful video with sound, all of these unique propositions, tons of scale, 80 million people a month. And then all the mobile data that was coming into the space. So I really thought technology is really helping this industry. There's tailwinds in out of home, and there's even stronger tailwinds in digital out of home. So it's not that I thought it was going to be easy, but I thought I could see the playbook in my head. So that's what we did, and I found myself in out of home after all these years. I get to sell something beautiful with screens and sound and video, and so far so good. If you take out from about March 15th to now, other than that, it's been an awesome run and probably the best time I've had in my work life. So.
And it sounds like things are coming back. We were just talking about it before we press the record button. What's the recovery looking like?
Yeah, we closed my last business trip was the week of, I came back to New York on March 6th. I was in Chicago. Things were starting to get pretty weird. My wife called, the airline called, and I don't usually talk to my wife on business trips where, we've been married a long time. It's like, just go and I'll see you when you come back. And she said, hey, have you checked the flights? The airports things started getting weird. And then we wound up shutting our office down. We're right on Park Avenue in New York. We shut it down on Friday the 13th of March. And we made a good decision at the time, and our team is awesome. And they said, hey, if our audience is going to disappear and these malls are going to close and we're going to turn off 5,000 screens, we should probably be measuring this, which sounds crazy. But this way, when things start to open up, we'll have a really authentic, trustworthy set of baseline numbers where we can show our growth. So I wasn't thinking that far ahead. The team was really smart. We interviewed a bunch of companies. We wound up hiring Intermix, who has credibility. And it was really sad to watch the first week. We went from, big audience. We went down to 6 weeks of less than 3% of our average audience. So we basically were closed. I talked to some smart people who run other businesses our size, and most people were going the route of furloughing everybody and just batten down the hatches and wait. And we didn't do that. We still had an active pipeline. Our advertisers stayed with us for the most part. Obviously, they weren't with us when the screens are turned off, but if they had a fourth quarter schedule, almost none of those things canceled. So that gave us real courage to say, you know what? Let's hold on to as many people as we can. Let's make the team as strong as we can. It's going to be weird, but let's sell out into the future. Let's use this time to be really smart. Let's do some training. Let's look at this data. So every week we're getting the data that says, yep, you've got no audience. Next week, you've got no audience. And, they were not exciting reports to get every Tuesday. But then as malls started to open up, by early June, we had half of them open. And again, whether you think that was the right decision or not, they were pretty safe about social distancing and how they were going to treat the customers. There were no door handles at a lot of them. You can walk around, you can stay away from people, and people started coming back. So now we were able to show a hockey stick where, we're plodding along at 2%, then it's 20%, then it's 30, 40, 50. And now we've got about 3/4 of our audience back. And that might be the new normal. Maybe it's fewer people in these locations, but that's still a big media company. We're still, even now, we're 6 times bigger than the number one show on broadcast television right now. So if we can't sell that, then there's something wrong with us. So we're back, and it feels good. We're selling stuff. We're pitching. I think, advertisers are still being cautious. It's a very tough time to figure out what your messaging should be. You've got a lot of things going on in the country. So not everybody wants to hear from a burrito company or a car company right now, but they're coming back. We're helping them with the creative. I think we've got a really good environment for that, because we're not going to be in the middle of a political conversation or, a conversation that might be something you don't want your kids to see. We're out in the world. Our screens are ads only. We do the content. There's no editorial. It's just, we're designed to get attention and just sort of get your message out there for brands. So I think it's a pretty good place as people recover and they're not sure what their message should be. We're a place where it can be a simple message. You can go back to, talking to your customers, and, that's part of the recovery as well.
Right. And talking about how advertisers use your platform, you're able to do some really cool stuff, some interactive things, especially for families. Is all of that done in-house, or do brands typically come to you with these great executions? How does that work?
It depends. It's funny. So we have our creative team. We've got an awesome, she's essentially our CMO, but she oversees our creative team and research. Her name's Haewon Yu, and she's got a long career. And, she's worked at creative agencies and media agencies and publishing. And she's just a big idea person. So she came here, and I hired her, and her whole thing was, man, this is an incredible canvas. And we can do anything for ourselves or for the advertisers, whatever their KPIs are, we can do something fun that can drive results for them. So it's kind of a dream come true for creative people. We have a small group run by Johnny Hamilton called Lightbox Studios. And I shouldn't say this publicly, but they are way better than they think they are. Like, they are awesome. Like, it's a world-class creative team. And, I've tried to have these teams at other companies, and, they're only as good as their talent, right? If you're going to see a blue chip advertiser that has, a creative agency roster like Ogilvy or FCB, and you're telling them you've got this great creative team, it better be good, and they're that good. They did all of our rebranding in-house, the fonts, the color schemes, the sizzle reels, all that stuff was done in-house. We want to make it easy. Out of home is still, I think, too small. It's less than 6 or 7% of US ad spend. Digital out of home smaller than that. And the more obstacles we put up, the harder it is to grow that. So if we're going to go see a blue chip advertiser, it better be really good, because they may say, you know what, we don't have anything formatted for 7-foot screens. We'll take care of it for you, but we've got to live up to their standards if we're going to do that. So yeah, it's a fun part of the job.
Yeah, and it sounds like a haven for the creative mind, because it is such a fun format. Greg, a lot of the things that you've talked about already, and I want to hone in on it, they sound culture driven, right? The decision to keep everyone on the team, pivot into training, and how do we plan for Q3 and Q4, the creative team in house. How important is culture at Lightbox?
It's very important. It's, I was lucky early in my career. It's funny. I had this really weird job where, Clear Channel, going way back, and I'll spare you all the details. But right when I started, Bill Clinton signed the Deregulation Act. So these media companies could buy a bunch of other companies. So all of a sudden there was a feeding frenzy, and it was, so-and-so owned 18 radio stations, and they bought this company that owned 12. And then together they bought this other one. And this happened for like the first 5 years of my career. So I wound up in this job where, we'd buy a group of radio stations, and I'd fly in, and you'd sort of spend a week there. And right away, I swear, every time you could just get a sense there's something in the air, right? That, and without naming names or locations, but I went into one group of radio stations, and the wallpaper's peeling. People are kind of scowling faces. I heard a hallway argument. Nobody came to get me in the lobby. And that stuff adds up. I guarantee you, I was like, I bet you their numbers are bad. And sure enough, performance was bad. Fast forward, you go to another market, and, it's bright. It feels fun. People seem like they want to be there. 19 people are asking me if I need help. And sure enough, their numbers are good. And it just sort of soaked into me that culture kind of fixes a lot of things. I've worked for 4 or 5 CEOs, and the best ones, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants profit. But if you just focus on that at the expense of everything else, it's really hard to achieve. And if you focus on a great place to work, you wind up with great people, and then the profit comes. So I think I was lucky that I worked for good people early on that thought that way. I had bosses that always, if they say they were going to do something for me, they would say, hey, take this year, and if you do X, Y, and Z, we'll do this for you. And they always did it. They did what they said they were going to do. So that became really important to me, and a shout out to some bad bosses too. If you have a couple of bad bosses, that helps too, because it's like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to do that. I want this to be a great place to work. I want people to get up in the morning and want to come here, or in this case, want to log in and not go somewhere. But so that's it. Look, I think especially before the pandemic, and unemployment was so low, kids are coming out of college with their pick of jobs, and you have to make it. I want them to come in. I want you to interview in person so you can see everybody. We're not hiding anything. When you get here, these are the people. It's going to be the nicest group of people you work with. They're high performers. And, I'll take somebody that maybe gets A- results, but makes everyone around them better, over somebody that gets A+ results, but drags down 12 people. Because the net doesn't work, right? Now, ideally you have both, right? It's an A+, and they also make everyone better, but that's, we'll get there. I wouldn't even put myself in that group. So yeah, that's really, really, really important to us.
What kind of advice would you give to, right? So a lot of the core audience to the show, business development, account executive types. What advice would you give to a seller in this environment to maybe get traction coming out of this? Do you have one hot take that you say, this is kind of the key for making 2020 a really successful year?
Yeah, it's funny. The last couple of jobs I've had, I've been, I think I'm a seller at heart, whether I'm a CRO or a CEO or a board member, whatever it is. I like making the deals. I think that's really important. My father-in-law always says that, nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? In any business. So I think that's really the key part of it. But I can't believe how bad some of the pitches I get, the cold, the LinkedIn pitches where somebody's got a service I might or might not need, and my name is wrong or the company's name is wrong. It's still AdSpace. And it's like, man, we've been Lightbox since April of last year. It's like, why would I trust you with my business? And then I think there's always 6 degrees of separation. If you can find some other personal hook, again, don't be phony. But I sent a note to somebody today, a head of media at a brand, that I haven't talked to this guy in 15 years. I'm not sure he's going to remember me, but I just put it out there and I said, hey, if you remember, here's how I think it was when we worked together. And it's just like a little bit of a connection. Find somebody in your team that might know that person. Instead of sending 100 cold emails, I think if you can find a way to reach out to 12 people, I'm going to do it this afternoon. If I can find a way to reach out to 12 people with something a little warmer, I think you're going to have a higher percentage, depending on what you're selling, right? If it's widgets, then go for it. Send 100 emails with the picture of the widget. But if you need relationships, our business thinks that it's really a meritocracy now. Advertising, and it's not, right? There's still relationships to it, right? You've got to earn it. Like, I think our screens work. That's why I'm always offering to pay for research, because I believe that our screens work. If my sister had a business, I would take her money on our screens because I think I would drive her, KPIs for her business. I haven't always felt that way. It's tough to sell something you don't believe in, but I would just say, lean into what you believe in and find a hook and be warm and be personal and, try. I think a dozen reach outs that make sense over 100 that are just a shotgun approach. That's how I've always done it. I've never been a good, completely cold form letter salesperson, and maybe because it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable takeaway, because you hear it all the time, right? Sales is a numbers game. It's a numbers game. It doesn't have to be when you make those numbers work in your favor. Make 12 of the right reach outs.
And just one last piece on that. And I know you wish relationships don't matter, and there's different types of relationships, right? There's relationships where it's like, hey, I just want to get the door open so I can have this conversation. All I'm asking you for is for the 30 minutes. I don't need you to do me a favor. I don't need you to give me $1 million IO that I don't deserve. Like, that's not what relationships are. Just, hey, can you make an introduction? I've done great work for you, and you've got a colleague at the agency that has a different brand. Would you be open to would you mind just saying, hey, this worked for your brand, and, and those kind of things. So I think those are the things when you've earned it, and that's the kind of favor to ask for, as opposed to just like, hey, can you buy me for fourth quarter because I'm behind my quota? Which people, I still get those. So.
Sure. Right. So it's kind of the 1-2 punch, and I really like it in that delivery of, you know what, I'm going to do less of this sort of salesy traditional reach out. I'm going to be more concise with who I'm talking to, and then getting over the fear of just asking.
Yes.
Right? Hey, would you mind? Would you mind? Sometimes we're just so afraid to do that. Oh, I don't want to upset the relationship. This is I don't want to do that. So I'll bother 100 other strangers that I don't know that I could potentially create a relationship with.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get them. And so you have to be genuine, right? Like there's some where, you get to the third paragraph and you're like, how do I know this person? And you realize you don't, but like they've tried so hard to, they know about my hobbies and this, and they're talking about my alma mater, and it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it's a cold call, but they did so much, so you really have to balance it and be genuine as well.
Sure. So if your sister did come to you with her ad budget and her company, how do you measure? Like, how do you measure performance for advertisers?
So it's funny. One of the things, I've been in a bunch of businesses where technology was supposed to help the ad business and it disrupted it or destroyed it, right? And I think that's what's unique about out of home that people don't talk about enough. If you look at technology, right? The IAB New Fronts today, right? They were talking about how broadcast TV is just getting completely murdered by connected TV. And obviously TikTok and digital video they're flat. Connected TV is up even through the pandemic, and digital video is flat. Desktop's down a little bit. So I think the idea that you have something that works, right? Like let's back up, let's take a step back and say, okay, Out of home generally always works, but it's the hardest thing to measure, right? It's the oldest medium. It's putting signs up on the side of a building, putting signs on your saloon. Like, people have been doing out of home for hundreds of years. You measure it. Do you sell more beer in the saloon? Do people, there are more horses outside, all those kind of things. For us, we've got now all the technology that's coming in is not disintermediating us. This is making our screens more valuable. We've worked with a couple of brands last year where I started getting much more confident, where I'll carve out a big chunk of their budget and I'll pay for the research because I believe it's going to work. And if I can say to you, let's say I go to one of our beautiful locations like the Sono collection here up in Connecticut in Fairfield County, and I've got my device ID, I'm walking around and I see a Verizon ad, one of our big advertisers, or Facebook Oculus, and I'm exposed to that on our screens. I'm in the mall for 45 minutes. I'm exposed to that ad. And then anonymously, they know that then I go back and 4 days later, I bought an Oculus. Well, we finally can get the attribution for that. We know that this was Greg Glenday's device was exposed to that screen and I became a customer. We've done things like this with Chipotle and Lego, and we know we can sell Lego sets. We can sell specific Lego sets, right? We did a really cool control and expose study with these specific Harry Potter Lego sets, and the exposed device IDs, right, that were exposed to the Harry Potter creative, went into the Lego store and they asked for this specific set. And the only way you would know about the Harry Potter set was on our screen. So it's like this infallible research that when it comes back, you get giddy to pitch it to the client, because this is not like, hey, your sales grew 1.6% and we think it was our screens that did that and you should give us credit. This is like, sales grew 112% and we know that the only place they saw them was on our screens. And it's just such a fun thing to do because the client's happy, the agency's happy, the brand manager's happy. So, I mean, ultimately, it really can be a win-win. Sure, I want more money, but I want to earn it. And, the fact that everybody is geofencing, whether it's Foursquare, Placed at the Time, Intermix, everybody's geofenced our locations because there's so much retail there. So we already know what's going on. We already know that people are there, they're back, what they're exposed to, and then what they go do. If they test drive a BMW, and we've been running heavy BMW schedules, and those devices were more likely to go into that dealership, wonderful. I mean, it's that simple. Like, we shouldn't overcomplicate it. It worked, So I get very excited about the measurement because it's new, whereas programmatic and some of these other things have decimated magazines, right? Think about what it's done to them. They tried to put it online and let programmatic take over, and you just become this sea of impressions, right? It's not all impressions are created equal. And I don't know how we let this happen, but there are shows that I think, certainly as the Super Bowl aside, there are shows where people are going to sit through the commercials, and there are shows where they aren't. There are things where you need to watch it live, and there are things that aren't. And our screens are not interrupting anything. We're not interrupting. People don't go there to watch something on our screens and then they're annoyed at the ads because the ads are interrupting what they came there for. It's just part of the whole experience. So I don't think out of home in general gets enough credit for that we are the least intrusive, meaning we're not making you stop what you're doing. Even Shazam, like, we were very careful when someone was trying to get the name of a song. We never said, hey, we're going to hold it. We know the answer to your question, but we're going to hold it hostage till you watch this video. We told you right away, here's the song. And by the way, here's an ad, So I think that's the right way to work with consumers in 2020. And I think obviously broadcast TV is figuring that out too. So anyway, I think the question was measurement, but I get really excited and I just keep going. So.
No, it's cool. Because you've opened up a concept that I think is important to talk about. It's not that measurement made out of home work. Out of home has always worked. It's just now we can measure it, right? Yes. So then you think back to all of the intrinsic value of legacy advertisers, whether that's a national brand or a local advertiser, of what that investment is and really what that conversation can and should be of, hey, we can tell you what it does now. Also, the last 10 years you've been with us, that's built incredible equity in your brand. And I think that measurement allows us to have a really good conversation around the total value of out of home.
Yeah. Advertising, we sort of pretend to be this like super data-driven now with a scientific, but it's a fairly inefficient thing, right? If you were to be, take the smartest data scientist or analyst at MIT or a consulting firm, and have somebody who doesn't know anything about this business come in and look at it and say, you can reset the whole business, it would not look like this. The dollars do not flow to where the attention is. The dollars flow. I remember selling digital, and you're just like, how did we get to this clicks thing? Like, how did this happen? This doesn't make any sense. Like, we're measuring the wrong thing, but the report card, we're reporting on the wrong stuff. But, so I think it's getting there. And I think everybody's, there's a lot of smart people. I'd had a conversation recently, guys like Lou Pascalis at Bank of America, who everybody knows, who's, a super smart, well-read, follows everything. He and John Patel, like, they talk about these, like context, right? Like, it's not just who's seeing the ad, but where is it and the mood. And there's so many other things to think about. It's not as precise. So you have to be able to use a little bit of gut too. And, but like you said, 10 years ago, it's like, you kind of think this billboard's going to work or this screen might work. But if you can't prove it, it's just too risky. And as they used to always say, nobody gets fired for buying the number one show on TV. So
you're right, and that's it's a great segue of authority and what platforms and formats carry authority, because every impression is not created equal, and that's something that out of home has the unique ability to do, is really to project whatever that is with authority, almost regardless of where, to a certain degree.
Yeah. I think about people who are supposed to be competitors of ours, right? I think about like Screen Vision and Captivate, and, the way digital out of home has grown up. For some reason, we've gotten in these silos. I don't think that's the right way. I seem to be alone in that, but this idea that like, we have these sets of inventory, that's not the way people live their lives, right? No one thinks of themselves as an elevator rider or a mall shopper. You do all of those things, right? I ride elevators, I pump gas, I go to the movies, I go to the mall. And, so I think when we start thinking about it like audience instead of vertically, we start thinking horizontally, I think it's going to be better for everybody. And then you really start to earn it, right? We have Captivate in our elevators at Lightbox in 99 Park. And I'm always jealous of, I get in, I'm like, man, this is a great place for an ad. I'm staring at it. It's a short ride, but I'm staring at it. And then I know they feel like, I wish my screens were bigger like yours and had sound, So the grass is always greener, but we're different. We all have different ways of communicating with those consumers. And, I think it's going to start to get as programmatic really takes off. And I think we have a chance to do it right and not just make it a sea of impressions and a race to the bottom. I think there'll be context around it, and really smart people are thinking about it. So I'm very hopeful about, how technology, beyond just location stuff, but the programmatic people, they're not trying to recreate the digital programmatic animal that's one-to-one and at home. They're trying to create a programmatic model that works for one-to-many, which is what we should be. We shouldn't be ashamed of that. I like the idea that a whole family can see an ad, right? If we've got an ad for HBO Max on our screens, my whole family can see it. It could be a grandparent with a that brand fame has been lost with all this super precision, right? Like, my kids see a lot of ads I never see, and I see a lot of ads they never see. And I'm not sure that that's great for brands and brand health. Like you said, you and I could probably sing the same Coca-Cola songs from growing up and all that. And there's something about that's kind of lost now, besides out of home.
Right. And a great opportunity for smaller startup brands to step in and do some of those things and potentially scale quickly because of it. Or some of the blue chips to bring it back into the mix as they figure out, what is the message in this unique environment. So I think all great things. Yep. So Greg, if you're down, my man, Carlos, we're calling this Carlos's Questions. Carlos Zavala, he's the marketing manager for In Motion Media out in California. He said, Tim, can you start asking all the guests a couple of like the same questions? So if you're down.
Love it. Sure.
So I'm just going to pick a couple of them here. We'll maybe do two or three. First question, which I think is a lot of fun. If you weren't doing what you are right now, being in the out-of-home space, running Lightbox, what would you be doing?
Oh, man. So this answer has changed through the quarantine, right? I think I would do something with coaching, and it could be anywhere from life coaching to coaching kids I've spent so much time with my kids, and I've spent a lot of time on self-improvement in the quarantine. If I'm spending 10 hours a week on the train normally, so I said to myself, if I get to the end of this quarantine and I've wasted those 10 hours a week, I used to be on the train and I'm wasting them. So, I've been doing yoga. I've been doing a lot of meditating. I've been doing a lot of stuff that like I've wanted to get to. I've been reading a ton of books that were collecting dust on the shelf. So I'm really into, biohacking and a bunch of stuff like that. So I think I'd be really into that kind of thing. Like what makes people live happier lives. I want to incorporate some of that into the Lightbox life, but certainly it's not the whole thing. So I think something around wellness and, just helping more people live fuller, better, more positive lives, I think would be something. And if you asked me this in February, I would have said something completely different. So this is a post-quarantine answer.
Well, you know what? I think it's a great long-term answer because if nothing else, we've learned through this quarantine and social distancing, it's a mental game.
Yes.
It is 100% between these 6 inches of how you perceive and interpret.
So true.
I think that's great. Let's see. This is a fun one. We've talked a little bit about it, but maybe just a chance for you to crystallize on it. What are you currently most excited about?
So I would say for Lightbox, I feel like we woke up a couple of weeks ago and things started to open up. I'm most excited about how this is all going to reset stuff. I think what happened not only with COVID, and I'm from New York. My family's all on Long Island. They were kind of in the first epicenter of it in the U.S. and just sort of watching everybody go through that, and then into George Floyd and all the stuff that happened there and how awful that was, and just what's happening with the country. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen after this. I think I think all of this is a catalyst for change that's overdue. I think there's stuff that's been going on that just, I'm embarrassed to say you don't see it because it's just, you grew up that way. You wouldn't realize that you don't know any different. And I think this is just I think all of this coming together, the fact that, if people weren't stuck at home, maybe it wouldn't be so easy to go out and march and protest and get the voices out. So I'm excited for, selfishly for the malls to open and our screens to come back and for us to do positive things in the community and help our brand partners and find new advertisers. I'm excited that revenue is starting to come back. So now we can bring things back and start doing all the things we wanted to do. There was a point there where I thought we were going to get to January 1st. And I had an idea that we would get everybody to just say, let's start over. When we get to January 1st, we're going to say it's 2020 again. And we're just going to do the whole year over. Pretend 2020 didn't happen and just reset the whole thing. I don't think we have to do that anymore. So I'm pretty excited for sort of a safe reopening and somewhat back to normal, safely seeing family and friends. And, I think it's time for that. And I'm really excited about that.
It's great. I think we're excited for a lot of the same things. It's going to be good. Yeah. So you talked about it in the answer to question 1 and the behind you. What's your book recommendation for the moment?
So I just finished, and I know this has been out a little while, but it's James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And I read it because I had always heard about it, and I wanted my 14-year-old to read it. And I was like, I can't be a hypocrite and ask her to read it if I haven't read it yet. I was like, this is not going to be anything new for me. But the whole idea behind little incremental changes was, I wish I actually read it before the quarantine, but it really solidified my thoughts on, making little changes. I usually go business book, fun book, business book, fun book. Next on the list, something deeply hidden, Sean Carroll. That's a quantum physics for dummies book.
Cool.
Jim Quick, Limitless.
Love Jim Quick.
Ending Aging, and then Graham Hancock, America Before. So these are my next 4.
Great recommendations. I'm going to add a few of those. I'm reading a book right now. This guy, his name's Jesse Cole. He owns not even a professional baseball team. He owns a team called the Savannah Bananas. It's in Savannah, Georgia. And Jesse Cole is well known for wearing this yellow tuxedo. It is summer college baseball. So it's not a high quality product, but he's a student of Walt Disney and Barnum Bailey, and his whole approach is creating an experience. They have no advertisers in the stadium. They're sold out every single game. So maybe one for your list after you get through those.
Jesse Cole, got it.
Jesse Cole. So good stuff. Greg, this has been a lot of fun. Where can people find more about you, about Lightbox? What's the best places online to find you guys?
All of our info. We've got a lot of great stuff on our website, Lightbox out of home. So lightboxooh.com. I'm Greg at lightboxooh.com. On LinkedIn, that's probably the best place to find us. Either of those things, feel free. And would love to talk to anybody. I've got more time. I'm trying to spend more time with people I don't know, which sounds crazy in this, but I'm doing lunch club and things like that, which I never would have done before this. So happy to talk. And I love stuff like this. So I think this is really fun, and I appreciate you having me on.
Very good. And we appreciate you doing it. Thank you. And for anyone listening, if this has been helpful, I encourage you, go ahead and click that share button, send it to somebody who could benefit. And as always, if you want to get swagged up, you can check out oohswag.com. Make sure to use promo code INSIDER, right? We're going to need to start putting a store on there for all the guests because everyone's got great swag. So check it out, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.